All right. Hello, welcome everyone. This is another installment of Get It. Oh, there we go. Get It Klu 52 for coaches. I'm Jeff Klubeck, and we do this every Friday. And I've been doing this actually for a couple of years. The Get It Klu in 52 series of books. They're tips books. So Get It Klu in 52, 52 tips. They're all the books are organized into 5 categories. And the theme this year is for coaches. Get It Klu in 52 for coaches, myself included. I am enjoying the fact, and ever since it dawned on me while I was writing the book, I set out to like create something for other coaches, aspiring and emerging coaches. What I realized is that I was going down memory lane and reminding myself of some of the challenges and struggles that I still face. So Get a Clue in 52 for coaches, myself included, right? And our 5 categories this year are self-promotion. We had 11 tips in the self-promotion section. And now we're in the second section, which is enrollment or engagement. I say that because they're synonymous in this under this umbrella. If I'm a private coach and I want to build a coaching practice and want people to pay me for coaching, I want to get people enrolled in my coaching programs. But if I'm a leader in an organization, I want my direct reports and my committee members or what have you, I want them engaged, employee engagement or participatory engagement, right? So enrollment or how do we secure that? How do we secure engagement? We're in those tips right now, and we'll get to that. But then once we're done with this section, we're going to move on to a section on motivation, then accountability, and then practice building. And the last 12 tips of the book are when it comes to practice building, it's not just for coaches, right? It's for any like solopreneur or micro business owner, et cetera. We're really covering the 12 accountabilities that all businesses must meet. And I had a lot of fun kind of getting it all out as I was writing Stream of Consciousness about what it's like for a coach, a solopreneurial coach, to try to meet all of those accountabilities on one's own, like I've been doing for however many years. And when I say doing, I don't necessarily mean doing well. The struggle is real. But let me recap a little bit. What happened years and years and years ago, not that long ago, in 2019, I wrote the original Get a Clue in 52. This one had all the mistakes in it that I found when I would read a tip every Sunday night at 8 p.m. and going through the book, I found all of the things that were done wrong. So we improved it. I improved it and got better publishing and prep and formatting and cover design and all of that, and cleaned it up to this edition. And we even put in this edition, we put a preview chapter for the Integrity Game, which is a book I came out with last year. But the Integrity Game is not a tips book. So let's just stay on brand here with Get a Clue in 52. And then I co-authored another version for entrepreneurs. The 5 categories in this edition are for entrepreneurs, and it's in 2 different brands because we had the co-author, my friend, my client, Vipul Dayal. So all of these categories and all of these tips are about being an entrepreneur. The categories were personal branding, business acumen, business ownership, leadership and influence, and work-life balance. And then in the original Get a Clue in 52, those categories are communication, accountability, networking, marketing, and sales. So that's a kind of review of the Get a Clue in 52 series. It's kind of fun for me to do this every week, get online, create some content, lay down a recording, and be available, right? And nobody's joining me today, but in the past, there's usually 1 or 2 people that come on board, and that still may occur at any point throughout the session. But let me go ahead and get into it. I'm going to read the tip, but here we go. I'm playing with banners now. Welcome to Get a Clue in 52 for coaches. Everything's get dedicated to my family. Very, very, very lucky man. My wife and kids. Shout out. Everything we do is for them. Shout out to Troy Hoffman, who wrote the foreword for the book. And then quickly, tip number 1. I don't know if I'm going to do this all the way through 52, but if I can get into the rhythm of doing it quickly, I will. The first tip, the first category, remember, was self-promotion, right? So first of all, start calling yourself a coach. Then only call yourself a coach when. And then don't just call yourself a coach, and then stop calling yourself a coach. And tip number 5 was get super honest about your why for coaching and really talking about the money factor there. Tip number 6 was get super confident about your what. So we're moving into solution providing. Get super intimate, get professionally intimate with your who, professionally intimate with your who. F, your how, right? This is the whole sell benefits, not features, right? Don't tell them how coaching works. Tell them what they'll get, how they'll feel at the end of coaching. Oh, let me keep going quickly. Tip number 9 was these reversible questions. I say reversible, the 7 questions that we lay down. And if we memorize those questions, we'll be really effective asking them in networking situations, but the reversible side of that is we also want to know what our answers are to those same questions, right? So have answers and be able to ask these 7 powerful questions in networking. Tip number 10 is prepare to speak your way to success. I know of no greater way to promote your business than public speaking. And then finally, tip number 11, which kind of segued us into the second section of the book, which we're in right now on engagement and enrollment, was little pink spoons, this notion of risk-free samples, a representative sample that gives us more certainty and confidence and imagination for what we're getting into. It's been proven throughout history that if you give somebody a risk-free trial of something, they're more likely to adopt it. That has been proven over and over and over in all the academic literature and the studies and so forth, right? So here we go. That got us into the second section of the book. 9 tips now that we're working through on enrollment or engagement. How do we secure engagement? How do we secure enrollment? So tip number 12 overall, but number 1 in this section was it's not all about, I mean, first of all, it's all about you, and then it's not about you. Like this paradox of being the service provider, being the person that wants to help, the person that loves people, all of these things that we say and we know to be true about ourselves as coaches. We do want to serve. We do want to help. We do love people. So it's not about us. It's about the other. At the same time, if we're intent on making money as a coach, building a coaching practice, being able to pay for things and being compensated for the value that we bring to coaching, then it is all about us and our ability to serve the needs of our business. Our business has needs too. So the same love that we have for helping others, we have to give that same love to our business. Consider our business and other that we want to serve and bring that into balance. So it's a mindset game before we get ready to engage or enroll people, get permission from people to be their leaders on whatever form that is: manager, supervisor, director, VP, etc., or coach. All right. Next, tip number 13 was to set the expectations, like all of them. And specifically what I'm getting at here is make sure, and we're talking about pink spoons, right? The engagement, the enrollment process. The 2 pink spoons I talked about in how I built my coaching practice was to offer 2 complimentary coaching sessions. I forgot to mention. That's the context of all of this, is that it's 2 complimentary coaching sessions, not 1, not 0, and not more than 2. And in past sessions that we've done, I explained all the reasons why that's the case. So understand, little pink spoons, 2 complimentary coaching sessions. So when we get to tip number 13 about setting expectations, like all of the expectations, that includes that they'll be encouraged or asked to make a decision at the end of the second session, right? So the idea is, we're going to build rapport. We're going to, you're going to be able to ask me questions. We're going to maybe discuss some content. What can I expect from the 2 complimentary coaching sessions, right? You can answer all those questions, but if you don't say at the end of the 2 sessions, you're going to know if you want me to be your coach. You're going to get to make a decision if you want to enroll in a coaching program or if you want to customize a coaching program. It's really important to be very clear about, at the end of the 2 complimentary sessions, there is going to be a decision that is going to be offered, right? Customized, built, however you phrase it, and we can get into role plays and dialogues and all of that sort of thing, which I do, by the way, in my group mentoring and in my leadership and training, right? But here, this is just free reading a tip, and I'm reviewing them now. I went quickly through the first section to really, give myself more time to set up the buildup of these tips before we get to today. So, again, we're in engagement or enrollment. We're offering 2 complimentary coaching sessions. The first thing we need to do is get our mind right and bring into balance our selfless need to serve others, but our also selfless need to serve the business, which means we have to have an intention to sample coaching for somebody in a way that helps them make a decision. They have to expect to be able to make a decision to enroll in coaching at the end of the 2 sessions. So now we want to actually conduct the session. We actually want to open up and begin the session. So the first thing, among all the things that I teach people in my coaching and leadership training to do in section 1, very simply, section 1 is to build rapport. You don't want to build a mansion on top of quicksand, right? And you don't want to try to give a sample of really, really world-class coaching or anything close to world-class coaching without building rapport, being in rapport with somebody. And it's like, not only that you have the sense that you know who they are, but they have the sense that you know who they are. Very important. And we, in the tip, we got into strategies and techniques about how to do it. And that was just, a sampling of what we do, of course, in the coaching and leadership training, which I'll be promoting at the end of the session here. So there's Klubi snacks for all of these tips. I'm going to flash them on the screen, and you can press pause if you're watching or recording this, capture the snack or get the book. They're in here. But I'm not going to go ahead and read them word for word while I'm doing a review of the tips. So that brings us to tip 15, which is after we've built rapport, what we want to do is now do what I call scissor, CICR. Scissor is a four-step breakdown. Like a lot of coaches know, this is the best way to say it. Great analogy we came up with. A lot of coaches know that we have to peel the layers of the onion to find out what's really going on. Most coaches know that, okay? But what scissor is 4 slices into that onion that make it easier, not just for us to peel. We got to get out, it's not about us. We want to make it easy for the prospect to get out of their own way and actually lock in on and describe or put a label on an area of their life, world, career, business that needs to be different. So when you just ask somebody, what are the 3 most important things in your world that have to be different? People can deer in headlights, right? It's a big question and nobody asks them, right? So we got to say, all right, here's 4 forms of different: change, improve, create, or remove. When we can create that partition, those slices into the onion for the prospect, they might be able to grasp or access tangible things that we can then work with in the complimentary session. And little caveat here, it's totally cool if next session or next month or next week or next year, the things that are the most important that really need to change are different. Remember, we're in complimentary coaching right now, so we just need something to work with. It doesn't even matter if it's the real thing that they really need. It doesn't matter if it's the real root issue. They're going to dip their toes and inch their way into this, and they're going to work on what's kind of safe first. You have to be ready for that. But as soon as you get a label on something, you can work with it, and we need to help them arrive at those labels. And so these are the 4 slices into that onion. And here's the Klubi snack. Most coaches know that you need to peel back the layers of the onion, but we want to make those slices. So once somebody has a label now, right? And this is really, last week's tip, which is setting us up for this week's tip. And by the way, we know, let's just look ahead to this week's tip. It's going to be to assign homework. This week's tip is to assign homework, and I'm about to read it. But because I can't not teach and train, it's hard for me to eliminate the teacher trainer here. Understand, once we've helped them decide or arrive at decisions and labels for the 3 most important things that need to be different than they are right now, the things that are going to be the subject of the complimentary coaching, right? What we really need to do, knowing that we're about to assign homework, is we need to get leverage. We need to associate, or at least take the temperature, find out, assess how bad. Like, how bad is it? How bad do you want it? How bad is it going to be if you don't do something? So we need to associate the prospect to the pleasure and pain of changing or not changing, of doing or not doing, of taking or not taking action. We know, watching this, that insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. So underneath all of this, or overarchingly over all of it, is behavioral change. We're ushering people slowly into whether or not they're going to take action, change some sort of behavior, right? And if they don't want it bad enough, if it doesn't hurt bad enough, or if it's not desirable enough, then they're not going to do it. And you're figuring this out now in the complimentary coaching, because by the time you're done with the second session, you should both know if they're eligible or ripe or ready for coaching. Are they coachable? Do they need change so bad that they're willing to be held accountable, willing to make commitments, etc.? So we're laying the foundation for all of that in this step, in this stage. So leverage is getting them associated to the pleasure and pain of changing or not changing. How bad is it? What has it been like not to have that? Or how does it feel not to have that now? And if you don't get that soon, what's at stake? Or how good would it be to have that? Or have you had that in the past? And how did that feel? And what would it be like to have that now? And so we want to associate people to pleasure and pain. And that's what getting leverage is all about, because pleasure and pain are really at core the only reasons that people do anything. It's pleasure and pain. So if we're not aware of and associated to, tethered to, connected, clear about the real pleasure and pain of taking or not taking action, then we're just going to keep doing the same old stuff. Insanity, right? So having said that, the Klubi snack there was, they will never change habits, patterns, peer groups, or addictions, let alone hire a coach, if they're not super clear that the status quo is more harmful than the work of change. So once we've got some sort of a connection, association for the prospect of the consequences of not taking action, now we can, get those toes a little further into the water and assign some homework. So having said all of that as background, I'm ready to go ahead and read tip number 17. And it's on page 73 if you're following at home with your own copy of Get a Klu in 52, available on Amazon.com. All right, tip number 17, assign homework. Be clear that you do not have to call it homework. You can call it an assignment, a commitment, a task, or whatever you want. Extra credit. And I actually put a smiley face in there. What I'm suggesting you do have to do, however, is get the prospect to commit to doing something after the current session is done. And if adopting my 2-session process before the next session begins. Remember, the comp session experience must be a little pink spoon of what coaching will really be like with you. Very simply, if the prospect will be expected to make commitments to taking actions they were previously avoiding, innocently or otherwise, you will want to give them a sample of that in comp coaching. More important, as I alluded to in the introduction to the section, right? And I didn't read the introduction, by the way, live in any of the sessions. If you want the introduction to the section, you got to get the book. Okay. Anyway, more important, as I alluded to in the introduction to this section, if the prospect will be expected to be accountable to commitments they make, they must not only make them, but also report on the status of their completion. That is why homework is the term I use, because it suggests the turning in, due date, complete or incomplete vibration of accountability that is critical in my coaching formula. And you do not have to give them a second comp session to agree on how. Hang on, let me slow down to make sure I read this in the right rhythm. And you do not have to give them a second comp session to agree on how they will report to you that their homework, task, commitment, assignment, extra credit is done. That's a little confusing to me as I read it in real time. I'm not going to go back. I'm just going to move forward. Finally, recall that this tip follows from your efforts to get leverage, right? I tried to build it up before I started reading, and now here I am. I wrote this last year, right? At the end of last year, published it at the beginning. Anyway, so leverage is so important. All of these tips build on each other. I'm going to start reading again there to stay in rhythm. Finally, recall that this tip follows from your efforts to get leverage. And one way to find out if you have gotten leverage is to assign an action item to your prospect to see how willing they are to agree to commit. Yeah, that's a typo. Not do, but to see how willing they are to agree to commit, to do or not do, and then to report and be held accountable. In most basic sales trainings, you will be taught to, quote, test close during your presentation. And delivering comp coaching with an intent to enroll is no different. In short, a test or trial close is when you are not asking for the sale, a close in sales terms, but asking for something else, most often an opinion, that gives you a better idea of how interested they are or how interested they might be in the actual sale close. I'm going to read that again just to not stumble over myself, right? So in short, a test or trial close is when you are not asking for the sale, a close in sales terms, but asking for something else, most often an opinion, that gives you a better idea of how interested they might be in the actual sale close. In coaching, there is no better, quote, test or trial close than asking the prospect to commit to an action and agree to be held accountable. I'll say that again. In coaching, or it should say complementary coaching, right? Remember the context, pink spoons. In coaching, if we're on our way to getting somebody to enroll in coaching with us, there is no better test or trial close than asking the prospect to commit to an action and agree to be held accountable. And so that would require a following session. That's one of the hugest of, there's 9 reasons why I do 2 comp sessions instead of 1 or 0 or more than 2. But among the 9, probably the largest of them all is because you need a second session in order to hold somebody accountable to something they commit to in the first session. But then you need the boundary. You can't go beyond 2 sessions for other reasons that we'll discuss. Let me finish this last paragraph here. If they're willing to do it, you have done a good job setting expectations, building rapport, getting leverage, and offering a clear and doable assignment. And if they actually do what they committed to doing, then you have effectively test closed in the affirmative on your way to the real close. Personally, I'm not ready to make the real close until I'm done delivering a second comp session. And the next 3 tips are all about it. So there you have it. We talked, and I'm going to read this again because it reviews these tips, right? Remember, the first tip of this section was to get your mind right and balance that it's all about me, it's not about me mental dilemma that we have to make peace with in our own mind about coaching before we give the comp session. We have to acknowledge and make space in our mind for the fact that, hey, this person is going to be asked or encouraged to make a purchasing decision. We have to let that swim freely in the energy of the complementary coaching. We can't suffocate that, hide that. It's going to come out in the wrong ways. We have to just entertain and address and welcome that notion immediately. And once we do, then it's easier to then be selfless and be all about the other, right? But here we go. I said right here, if they are willing to make a commitment, even better, right? In the complementary coaching, you have done a good job setting expectations, building rapport, getting leverage, and offering a clear and doable assignment, right? So those are the tips, 13, 14, 15, 16, or whatever it is. These last 4 tips, they break down kind of what we want to do inside of complementary session number 1. And so then we talk about the next 3 tips are what we want to do in complementary session number 2. So there you have it. That is the tip for this week. If there were people online with me, I would open it up for comments or questions. Let me go ahead and see if anybody on social media threw anything in. I don't see anything. Cool. So normally these things are scheduled up to 45 minutes, but I'm going to go ahead and take advantage of the fact that other people have something else to do today. Very cool. So I'm going to get moving on with my day as well. In reviewing everything, we talked about assigning homework and how powerful that is in the context of delivering complementary coaching. It ties into this whole notion of why 2 complementary sessions are better than 1, 0, or more than 2, etc. And now we're breaking down kind of like the main ingredients of how to offer complementary coaching in such a way that you're really guiding somebody towards this decision to make a decision to enroll with you as their coach. And of course, I'm kind of leading with this context of I want to enroll people in coaching with me. If you're an aspiring or emerging coach and you want to build your own practice and build your own coaching business, that's what you want too, right? But we can map all of these objectives, all of these tips, we can map them to other forms of leadership. These map to a supervisor, director, VP, or a financial advisor, or a real estate broker or agent, or a fiduciary, or like a life insurance agent, or whatever it is, right? Anybody that's providing services to others that requires deep, deep, deep levels of trust and an acumen and an expertise, this can map, right? So it's coaching and leadership. It's not just coaching. Get a Clue in 52 for coaches, myself included. Please understand that all of the things that we're talking about map to other forms of leadership. We look forward to seeing you next week for tip number 18 overall, which would be tip number 7 in the engagement enrollment section, and onward we march towards all 52 tips. All right, have a great weekend, everyone. We'll see you next time.